Hello, my dear students. Welcome back to the third part of our computer configuration chapter, that is memory. So, memory is a place where data, instructions, program, text, audio, video, clips are stored permanently for future reference. So, the computer memory is divided into two types. One is called primary or internal or temporary memory. Second one is called secondary or external or permanent memory. So usually computer system have small amount of internal memory for the storage of data, instruction, program, audio, video clips, etc. So it is one of the fastest memory and very expensive. Hence, a small amount of internal memory is used by the computer system. So the features of internal memory are temporary storage, limited storage capacity, fast access, and high cost. So temporary storage means we can store a small amount of data bar instruction or program for certain period of time until the power supply is switched on. Once the power supply is switched off, whatever is stored in a primary memory will be lost. That's why it is called temporary storage. Next one is a small amount of storage capacity it has. So as you heard in every computer system, a small amount of RAM, that is about nowadays about 32 GB, oh sorry, 1 TB, 1 GB, 2 GB, 3 GB, 4 GB RAM chips are used in order to retain a small amount of data bar instruction or text, audio, video clip temporary during processing of a computer system. That's why a small amount of storage, internal memory is usable by the computer. Next, it lets the user to perform computer to perform fastest operation like reading, writing, accessing data, etc. Because of fastest memory, so it is one of the costliest memory. That's why the last feature is high cost. So let us study again. The internal memory includes registers, cache memory, and primary memory. Registers are nothing but temporary storage devices on a motherboard of a computer system where and these registers can be used in order to hold data, instructions, addresses, and intermediate results during calculation. Hence, registers can be considered as a CPU's working memory. CPU's working memory. So essentially, they are used to hold the data, instruction, addresses, etc. permanently. So they are also known as a the, during sorry they are usable. Whatever data and instructions are retained in a registers are usable by the CPU during processing of a particular program or data. So the different registers are available on a motherboard of a computer system. So those are known as a PC. PC stands for program counter. IR stands for instruction register. MER stands for memory address register. MBR stands for memory buffer registers. These registers are also known as the general purpose registers, and they are available on a CPU of a internal memory of a computer system. Next part is cache memory. As I told you, are studied this in first year. Cache memory is nothing but a very high speed memory placed between CPU and RAM of a computer system. So cache memory increases the speed of processing. Usually cache memory stores data and instructions temporarily that is usable by the processor, and it retains the data and put the CPU in a waiting condition until that instruction or data is usable by the processor. So it will act as a mediator between RAM and a CPU in order to provide data or instructions stored temporarily during processing. So in earlier CPU, in earlier CPU, we'll find L1 cache of a very small size in KBS, that is kilobytes. That may be in the range of up to 16 KB. So nowadays, as processor technology has developed, it has become possible to make room for L2 cache inside the processor chip. So generally we have three types of cache memories. One is called L1, second one is called L2, and third one is called L3. So L1 cache is provided in between CPU and RAM. L2 cache is L1 cache is provided as a built-in memory within a CPU. Then L2 cache is placed in between CPU and RAM. Similarly, nowadays the latest computer systems processors like Core i7, etc., will have one more type of a cache memory, that is called L3 cache, which is also placed in between CPU and RAM. So the size of L1, L2 and L3 varies. So the size of L1 cache is in terms of KBs, that is 64 KB, 128 KB or 256 KB maximum. Then the cache L2 cache memory size is in the range of MB, so it varies from 1 MB to 8 MB or higher. Similarly, L3 cache nowadays it is used in a latest CPU of a latest CPUs. Its size is up to 12 MB or more. So the next part is primary memory. So primary memory is nothing but a temporary memory. It is volatile in nature. It is further divided into two types. One is called RAM, another is called ROM. RAM stands for random access memory, ROM stands for read-only memory. So random access memory is the fastest memory, volatile in nature, and it is a temporary storage device used to read or write data or information temporarily. So different types of RAMs are. There are different kinds of RAMs are available on a computer system. Those RAMs are known as dynamic RAM, static RAM, synchronous dynamic RAM, or double data rate SD RAM. So here we will study them one by one. The second type is ROM, read-only memory. Already you have studied this in first year. So read-only memory is nothing but a memory which allows the user only to read the data that is retained in it at the time of its manufacture. It is non-volatile in nature. That means even if you switch off the computer, whatever information is stored in such a kind of a devices will not be lost, or it is retained permanently stored in it. So different types of ROMs are PROM, APROM and EEPROM. PROM stands for programmable read-only memory. APROM stands for electrically erasable programmable read-only memory, and E stands for electrically erasable programmable read-only memory. So this part is already covered in second year. You can refer back, or even you can write the notes. Next part is types of RAMs. So under types of RAMs we have four types. As I told, dynamic RAM, or it is also known as a DRAM, static RAM, or also known as a SRAM, synchronous dynamic random access memory, or we can call it as a SDRAM, then double data rate synchronous dynamic RAM, or DDR SDRAM. So let us see what are those one by one. So dynamic RAM or DRAM, it is used in a it is used as a main memory. Since it is small in size and cheaper, it uses transistors and capacitors. Transistors and capacitors are the electronic devices used in the manufacture of such a kind of a RAM. So the transistors and capacitors are paired, means they are coupled to make a memory cell. So the transistors are arranged in a matrix form. The capacitors holds the bits of a information, that is zeros and ones. So usually you are familiar that whatever data and instructions are to be retained in a memory of a computer system. So actually the data and instructions are converted in a binary pattern. Then the binary data, that is in the form of zeros and ones, is retained in a memory of a computer system. So here the capacitors will hold the information bits, that is zeros and 1. Next one is called the DRAM must be refreshed because it is a temporary memory. It should be refreshed continuously to store the information. Otherwise, it loses whatever it is holding. The refreshing operation is automatically done by the system, and it allows the user to access it allows the processor to access the information stored in it at the rate of 50 to 150 nanoseconds. Next one is called a static RAM or SRAM. So it is used by the cache memory of a computer system because of its high speed. So multiple transistors, that is 4 to 6 for each memory. It uses multiple transistors, that is 4 to 6 for each in order to form each memory cell. It doesn't contain capacitors, and uh, it needs it doesn't needs to be refreshing, and it is faster than DRAM. SRAM is known. SRAM is expensive than more expensive than the DRAM and require more space. So it stores the information as long as the power supply is switched on. Its access speed varies from 2 to 10 nanosecond in order to access any kind of data from it. Next one is called SDRAM. So it is usually SDRAM is tagged with the CPU's clock. So usually what happen when you want to supply multiple instructions to the computer, so each instruction will be accepted. One instruction will be processed at a time. So during processing of a multiple instructions are fetched to the memory, or instructions are fetched to the CPU one by one. So in order to retain instruction, in order to process the instructions are arranged in the form of a queue. Then one during processing of one instruction, next instruction should be kept ready, or it should be placed in a waiting list, or it should be placed in a waiting form, and in order to process that instruction after processing the first instruction. So in order to arrange, or in order to put the instructions in a waiting form, so actually such an kind of a RAM, SDRAM is used. So SDRAM is synchronized with the clock of a computer's central processing unit, so that it knows, so that it uses the instruction in order to hold it for, or put it in a waiting state. Then once the CPU sends a signal to transfer the next instruction, it is responsible for providing that instruction to processor. Like that, the processor will process instruction one by one. So uh, that's why it is synchronized with the clock of a computer central processing unit. So doing so, it increases the efficiency of a CPU by reducing its waiting time. That's all. Next one is called DDR SDRAM. So it works in the same manner as the SDRAM work, but the data transfer rate, or the instruction transferring rate, is double than the SDRAM. Next one is called ROM, or BIOS IC and CMOS battery. ROM or ROM, BIOS IC and CMOS battery. So ROM stands for read only memory. So BIOS stands for basic input and output system. So the complete expansion of ROM BIOS is read only memory, basic input and output system. So it is a chip which contain startup programs such as post stands for power on self test. So usually whenever you start a computer system, the computer system check its working checks the working of different components that are connected to the computer system. If all the components are okay, then it will start working, or it will start functioning. So that is called booting. Next one is called basic input and output system. So our BIOS is a program. It is a low level program which is available inside that chip in order to communicate with the other devices of a computer system. Next one is called a bootstrap loader program, or the bootstrap loader, or program to load operating system. So usually operating system is placed in a BIOS chip in order to make the computer system operable. So this chip can also be referred as a firewire, or uh, firewire or that is a software stored permanently on a hardware. So next one is called CMOS IC. CMOS stands for complementary metal oxide semiconductor technology. So actually this is also one kind of a chip which is integrated on a motherboard of a computer system. So it holds parameters like date and time parameters in it, and both BIOS and CMOS both are to be powered, or both requires a suitable amount of power in order to retain the information. So that can be provided by using a CMOS battery. CMOS battery is nothing but a lithium ion battery which is available on a motherboard of a computer, which powers or which supplies power supply required by the CMOS chip and BIOS chip. Next one, next part is called a power supply. So as you know, each and every computer system requires a power in order to make its operation. So usually power supply given to the computer system is nothing but a alternating current power supply or mains power supply. So usually computer is operated by main power supply. Electronic power is a main power source of supply for the operation of electronic components of a computer system. But continuous power supply is essential for the computer system in order to retain the information stored permanently and prevent the computer being damaged or from the failure and breakdown or shutdown, etc. So generally we have two types of power supply. One is called SMPS, another one is called UPS. So SMPS stands for switched mode power supply and UPS stands for uninterruptible power supply. Actually, switch mode power supply is nothing but a electronic power, electronic power from AC, alternating current. That is whatever power supply we are getting from the KEB, Karnataka Electricity Board. So usually computer systems are provided by the AC, alternating current power supply. So the AC is a mains power supply. Then, as you know, each and every component of a computer systems require a DC current. So this SMPS, that is switch mode power supply, except the AC current from the mains power supply, convert that current into DC direct current, and usually 5 to 12 volt of DC current is required by the all the components of a computer system. So this task is carried out by SMPS. So SMPS is responsible for converting AC supply into DC. Then it passes that power supply to various components of a computer system. Most of the new motherboards, that is ATX type, come with a 24-pin connector. So from SMPS, power is supplied to the a motherboard of motherboard components. So microprocessor, RAM, hard disk drive, CD bar, DVD driver, and all other parts of a computer system consume power through this switch mode power supply unit. So it contains power card and fan. So usually power card is required in order to connect the socket provided on a system unit with the mains power supply. Then usually a fan is provided on a SMPS in order to cool down the electronic circuit used by the SMPS. So SMPS converts a 230 volt AC to 5 volt or 12 volt DC current, and power rating is in the range of 150, 300, 450 and 550 watts. The next part is called a UPS. UPS stands for uninterruptible power supply. So this is the secondary power supply. So usually it is a power supply that includes battery to maintain power in the event of power failure. So suddenly, if the mains power supply went off, by that time, in order to retain the information of a computer system stored permanently and in order to keep the computer system connected with the power, so secondary power system is used, that is called uninterruptible power supply. So generally UPS is generally protects a computer against different power problems such as power failure, power fluctuation, voltage fluctuation, etc. So UPS stands for uninterruptible, means without cutting off, without switching on the or switching off the computer system, it provides continuous power supply required by the computer system. As an UPS keeps computer working for several minutes to few hours after a main power supply is failed. So that uses that user so that the user can say his important data in a which is available in a RAM. RAM means a random access memory of a computer system. Usually what happen whenever you start editing program or typing program or returning information, or if you want to return the information, usually computer retain the information in random access memory of a computer system, which is nothing but a temporary. So until and unless you save that information in a secondary device, it retains it in a primary memory only. So if suddenly power supply went off, whatever is stored in RAM will be lost. So to retain that one in a secondary storage device, continuous power supply is required, that is provided by the UPS. So there are mainly two types of a UPS system. One is called offline UPS, another one is called online UPS. So offline UPS is also known as a standby UPS, which runs the computer by using a normal power supply until it detects a problem. At that point, it is very quickly within less than milliseconds uh, uh, turns on a power inverter and runs the computer with the UPS battery. Standby UPS systems are more common for home small business use because they are very costliest. So usually in order to retain the information from a few minutes to few hours, we can make use of a offline UPS. So soon after disconnect of the power supply, it takes few milliseconds in order to switch from mains power supply to battery powered supply. So such an kind of a this one offline or standby UPS systems are utilized. Next one is called online or continuous UPS. So this UPS supplies continuous power supply soon after disconnection of a mains power supply. So here within a fraction of a second, so within a fraction of a, or soon after main power supply switched off, UPS will provide a continuous power supply required by the computer systems. So since it supplies the power continuously, it is one of the costliest equipment compared to offline UPS. So the diagrams are shown here. So next part is called assembling a computer system. So whenever you purchase a computer system, you need to or you will ask a quotation which contain the details of equipment which are to be included in a computer system. So actually assembling a computer system is nothing but configuring a computer system by purchasing a different components as per our requirement, and finally we are connecting all the components together to form a single computer system. So computer configuration is just a process of setting up hardware devices and resources of a computer system so that they can work together without creating problem. So a properly configured system will help user to avoid problems and make it easy to upgrade the system with new equipments in future. So while purchasing a computer, we have to purchase different components of a computer system so that whenever upgradation is required, so that upgradation can be carried out very easily. So the below list gives you the list of different components of a computer system with their latest configuration which are available in the market. So whenever you ask a retailer or computer seller in order to, if you want to purchase a computer, you must ask the retailer to provide you the this one quotation of a computer system containing a list of equipments that he is going to provide. So usually current configuration of a computer in market is listed below in the table. So one is called processor. So if you want to purchase a processor is the heart of a computer system. So if you want to purchase a computer, first we have to purchase the processor. We have to ask the which type of a processor is going to provide. So example, core i3, core i5, core i7, and that processor should be made up of Intel or any other company. Next one is called motherboard. So we have to purchase a motherboard of a computer system and such which contain a latest chip set with RAM slots and almost all the provisions that is provided on a motherboard of a computer system. Next one is RAM. So usually 4 GB or higher capacity RAM chips are required. So we have to purchase minimum 4 GB or above storage capacity RAM chips. Next one is called hard disk. Hard disk should be contain a SATA. Already I told you about this. SATA interface drives up either of 500 GB or 1 TB or more than 1 TB capacities hard disks you need to purchase. Next one is called optical driver. Optical driver means if you want to use CD-ROMs or DVDs for reading and writing information, then you can purchase optical drive, DVD writer. That is called DVD writer. Then monitor should be LED monitor of 18.5 inch or 20 inch or 21 inch or more. Next, keyboard. So we need to purchase a keyboard containing one or keys or multimedia keys, because nowadays we are playing multimedia. So multimedia controlling keys must be available on a keyboard of a computer system, and this keyboard should be interfaced with the USB. So it must have provision in order to interface with the USB. Next one is called mouse. So mouse is also very important part of a computer system, which is used for selecting one out of several options. So we have to purchase a mouse which enables the user to connect with the USB port of a computer system. Next one is cabinet. Cabinet is nothing but a system unit which the entire motherboard and other equipments are integrated, and the cabinet must have provision in order to connect various devices with the computer system. Next one is called a speaker. So if you want, it depends upon the user choice. Various types of speakers are available in the market. You can purchase them, and if you want to if you want to use multimedia kits with your computer system, speakers are required. You can purchase the speakers of your choice. So in addition to all the above equipments, it is also some softwares are required. So those softwares must be installed in a computer system. So it is better to purchase a non-pirated, means original softwares, and install them in your computer system. So usually we need operating system like Windows operating system, Linux operating system, and other so many iOS operating system, etc. are there. So according to your requirement, you can select the operating system. Then you can ask the provider to install them in your computer system. Then some other softwares like application softwares like Microsoft Office, language softwares, then DBMS softwares like MySQL, antivirus softwares for security purpose can be purchased by the user as per their requirement. So it includes the configuration also includes operating system and other softwares. I hope you got this concept. So this is the end of first chapter, that is typical configuration of a computer system.